Welcome to
Chikara
ゲーミング。
こんにちは皆さん、ようじんぼです。久しぶり。今日が新しいシリーズ始まるよ。楽しませてくださいよ。This video marks our first of various tutorial-based videos in assisting you to understand Yu-Gi-Oh! Many aspects of it. I'll just increase your ability and knowledge of the game. We will be using both English and Japanese throughout the series and consider both the OCG, the original card game, and the TCG, the trading card game, because the two are very different in some regards. This video obviously assumes you are new to Yu-Gi-Oh! Or perhaps you are looking for some tips on how to build a deck. What's important is that you understand how a deck works or how you can improve one. There are many Yu-Gi-Oh! Channels out there and many are excellent, however, many people will advise you to use this or perhaps abuse this card or that card, etc. Our purpose is to give you the tools and knowledge to become a great duelist. This is, after all, the dawn of the duelist. Yu-Gi-Oh! In both the TCG and OCG is a very fun card game, but can also be very complicated too, depending on how you wish to play the game. Within the rules, of course. No jammy dodgers here, please. We will try to cover as many aspects as possible to help new and aspiring players around the world as much as we possibly can. Otanashimi wa korekara da! The first step is actually having your cards from which you construct a deck to duel with. Let's begin. Sa, hajime wo. Once upon a time, the maximum amount of cards in a deck could be as many as 80 cards, and also an inordinate amount of cards in the fusion deck, which later, due to the many new card types, became known as the extra deck for clarity of reference. Synchro monsters, Xyz monsters, and the newest pendulum monsters were also added. The main deck defines success or failure in the game, and must consist of at least 40 cards. The extra deck and main deck are separate from one another. Think of the extra deck like an enhancement to the main deck you draw one card from each turn. More on the extra deck in a future video. Ideally, you want your main deck to have 40 cards. There's a very good reason why this is the standard, because the more cards you put into your deck, it comes down to simple maths. You need more draws to get the card or cards you need to actually win, or get your win condition, and win the duel of course. More than 40 cards does not equal more power outside of very specific strategies, like for example the archetype Light Swans. It can of course cripple your chances to win, or in fact draw any cards you need to defend yourself, or protect your monsters, or succeed in the duel. However, if you are playing for fun, feel free to use the maximum amount of cards, which is currently 60, but understand this risks the real possibility of not drawing what you need and the ability to respond well in the game. It's much easier to maintain a deck of reasonable size to implement new cards or strategy later. The next aspect of deck creation is having a decent card ratio and balance between the three main types of cards used in the game: monsters, spells, trap cards. As a rule, this generally should be about 20 monsters, 10 spells and 10 traps as the standards. With this, you should have a mix and variety of cards for your starting hand after your deck is shuffled before the main duel begins. If you have too many monsters but nothing to assist or protect them, how can you respond to what your opponent does on each of their turns? The same principle would apply to too many spells and traps. You might not have a monster card anywhere in sight and can't defend your field, preventing and reducing damage to your own life points, which are key. No life points means you are one squashed Karibo. Having a mix of options is better than only one or two of the three card choices. You can respond more to what your opponent puts into play, as the duel will unfold quickly. Now, the thing to consider when you craft your deck for the first time. You, the duelist, need to decide what cards of the huge variety available to put in your deck. There's so much flexibility and combinations that anyone can quickly have a very simple but very powerful deck, especially if it's underestimated. Maybe you only want warriors or dragon types. Perhaps you only want to use a certain monster attribute or monster type. It's important to decide what appeals to you and your own sense of individuality and tastes. Let me say to you, the duelist, whoever you may be, your deck is an embodiment and reflection of yourself. It is part of you. Be happy and content with it. All cards have a purpose, however small or seemingly negative it seems. The key is in how you use your deck to benefit you as the player and as a duelist. The next aspect you should consider when making a deck or creating a new deck is key cards, and important powerful cards that assist your deck. Let's say you already have your 20 monsters. The maximum copies of a card that can be in your deck any one time is 3. You can have less if you prefer, but if you have 3 cards, you increase your chance of getting that card sooner among a card you only have 1 of. Have you included at least 1 card, spell, trap or monster that allows you to draw a new card from the deck to put it in your hand or place a card out on the field? No? This increases your ability to draw cards you hope to get sooner. For example, Jar of Greed is a normal trap card that allows you to draw 1 card from your deck, and as it's a trap card, you can use it during your opponent's turn or play. The draw phase, by normal means, only lets you draw 1 card from your deck to place into your hand during each of your turns. This rule applies to both players at all times. There are some specific card rules and lore though, but we will go into that much later. The more personal and unique your deck is to you, in addition to what cards you carefully choose to select, it's much harder to predict and counter effectively. Decks usually fall into 2 categories, which, as this is a more basic video, you shouldn't worry about this much at the moment until you can get started. The 2 kinds of decks in general are known as meta and anti-meta decks. A meta deck is a deck that uses strong or popular well-known cards in addition to reliable cards. This kind of deck structure can be very effective, however, because of its familiarity, it has a glaring weakness. Good players will learn how to counter these cards and decks, or be prepared for the most widely and commonly used cards, which is where the next deck structure comes in, the anti-meta deck. An anti-meta deck reflects the complete opposite of a meta or popular deck choice. Anti-meta decks are aimed at countering popular and the most used deck types, and can be much harder to construct and duel against, because they use cards that are powerful but counter specific strategies. Most popular and frequently used cards used often, such as the graveyard, etc. Now you have this considered, you're probably ready to start dueling. However, there's a few other things to consider, so don't be a jammy dodger just yet. Just like any other card game, you obviously need another person or group of people to play against and try out your deck. This will let you see how effective your deck is, and possibly what you can do to improve it. It's not always an obvious thing, which is why this series was created. It's important to understand you can't always win from the beginning, especially when you are learning more about the game and its unique rules, of which there are quite a few to consider. Never ever be upset or discouraged if you lose your first few games. Like many things, it's all a learning process. Very important thing to remember, don't think that a loss immediately means your initial deck idea isn't good. Perhaps the opponent anticipated what way you would use your cards, or they had an effective counter strategy prepared in their cards and deck, in a way you didn't expect or weren't prepared for. Practice makes perfect. Last but not least, have fun. Try to use the chance to duel as much as you can. Look up your local hobby leagues and local scene, which gives you a feel for a tournament setting if that is what you eventually wish to participate in as a duelist. Don't be afraid to try new ideas and ask people for advice on how they use their cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is an evolving card game in both the TCG and OCG because it's always being expanded because people enjoy it. Like gaming itself, you play or want to play because it's fun. I hope you enjoyed the introduction video, everyone. If you have any suggestions for videos you'd like to see concerning Yu-Gi-Oh, do let us know. Our purpose is for you to grow as a player. Also, if you enjoyed our video, please don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe for more on this tutorial series. 気をつけて皆さん、忘れるなよ。お楽しみはこれからだ。